Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Claire. Nice to invite me here again. Um, as some of you have actually attended my previous webinar with the third degree, and you probably won't be what I call surprised that you know that I am not in academia. I don't speak like your university professor. I do not look at things from the traditional academician point of view. I'm more like towards a practical approach because I learn publications, I learn publishing papers, all these things through a practical approach. So I'm going to share with you my practical experience. So hopefully, what I'm going to share with you today will open up your mind and open up your eyes, and then from there you can actually pick and take whatever that is useful to you. So today's topic is about building a publishing pipeline, planning for multiple papers. Somehow, I find that this topic is pretty tailored for my situations, which I will tell you later why. So, and of course, the first questions that some of us would like to ask is, hey, can we actually use the same data set to generate multiple research papers? Can we turn complex research into multiple research paper? Now, these are the two cardinal questions that we will ask. And why do we ask this? Because we want to actually capitalize on our effort and optimize the number of papers that we can generate from there and we can publish. So this way, we will be able to so-called meet our KPI or meet our academic requirement easier. So now, is it possible or not? And how do I approach this? Now, you probably have seen some articles talking about, oh, you can do this, you can do this. Now, um, allow me to say very bluntly. Now, sometimes when I read those articles or I attend webinars, listening to uh, certain what I call prominent speakers, they share their point of view about how to do this, how to do that. And sometimes, I don't know whether you feel this or not. Sometimes, we have this feeling that, wow, this professor or this speaker, whatever he said, makes a lot of sense, but how do I go about it? How do I execute them? How feasible are they in when it comes to uh, the real life? So we have these questions, and sometimes at the end of the day, if we know a lot of things but we are not able to execute them or we're not able to put them into practice, they are as good as useless to us. So let me address or approach these two questions from a practical approach, an approach that I have used before, uh, some that I failed, some that I've succeeded. So let you see from the practical side, how do we tackle these questions? Now, the answer is yes and no. Now, why yes and no? Because the answer is not straightforward. It depends. Now, some of you uh, may have friends who are studying who have studied a law degree or studied law before. So sometimes when you ask them questions, they always not like to give you a yes or no answer. And most of the time, they always give you say it depends. Why? Because there are circumstances, conditions, requirement that need to exist before you can get a yes or before you can get a no. So in life or in publication itself, it's not as simple as yes and no. There are conditions. And a better way to ask the question is, if I want to do this, what are the prerequisites? Or if I want to avoid this, what are the things to look at? So it would be a better way to actually probe and to find out the real answer. So coming back to the two questions, can we use the same data sets to generate multiple papers? Can we turn complex research into multiple research paper? The answer is yes and no. And let's look at what when it is yes and when it is no. Now there are dual reality. Yes means because you have 100% of freedom to write any paper you want. Nobody is forcing you. Your supervisor, your universities, your boss cannot force you to do certain things. You have your own freedom. There is no legal or ethical restrictions that preventing you from doing this. Now, but the answer at the same time is no. Because if you want to do it, in a meaningful way or to achieve certain results or outcome that you desire, then there are specific conditions that must be met before this strategy become executable. So today we're going to go into what is the no part, because what is yes to us is really not of any help to us. What is to understand the no part? What are the conditions, the nitty gritty, the minute conditions that involve? Those are the things that will help us. Now, the truth is, okay, theoretically it is possible because we can actually generate multiple papers from a comprehensive research project. So long as that project itself is with sufficient depth and breadth, we can do that. But practically, it is not that easy because we need to meet certain prerequisites. For example, if your objective is to publish in a Scopus Index or a Web of Science Index journal, then there are stricter requirements that you need to meet. And meeting those requirements may actually hinder you from generating multiple papers because you do not have so rich content to be able to split into multiple papers and each paper still contain sufficient contribution and novelty. So, but if let's say I just want to write and I want to publish in a non-index journal, sure, you can have some overlap here and there, and you do not need to establish that you have sufficient enough novelty or contributions. You can then generate multiple papers and publish them. So it all depends on what you want and the desired results. At the same time, what you have. Even if you have little, but if your expectation is low, you can still do it. But if you have a lot and your expectation is high, you may not be able to do it. It is a balancing act. It's not a direct answer. Not a direct answer. Now, what are the essential prerequisites? Now, first of all, is you have to ask yourself, how flexible are you in terms of your publication objective? Now, sometimes I understand that a lot of people publish because of either meeting the academic requirement, because you need to pass your PhD or you need to pass your master's. You need to actually publish a paper that is required of you, and you have to do that. Okay? So if you are in that position, you don't have much flexibility. And probably your flexibility will be in between Q1 or Q4. But that is not a really a good enough flexibility. Okay? And second common reason why you publish paper is because of meeting KPI. You're in the academia, you want to get promotions, you want to meet the KPI for this year, you need to publish papers, and in order for you to beat the KPI, the publications have certain criteria, and you need to meet them. And that itself will then again limit your flexibility. Now, now for me, in my case, I actually don't have much what I call all these restrictions because I am not in the academia. I am not an academician, but my friend called me a pseudo academician because I work in the corporate world, and somehow I've been doing a lot of things what academician would do. For example, publishing papers, writing papers, doing research, uh, become peer review, the reviewer for journals, become what I call keynote speakers for conferences, become the editor in chief for journal, sit in the editorial board for journals. I do all those things, but I'm not in the academia, and because of that, I have a lot of flexibility. I can try many different things. And because I can try many different things, that allows me to experience a lot more than other people because I have no restrictions. So those people who have worked with me before or know me personally, then you will realize that I actually publish paper from a wide range of research topic. It's because I don't have the restrictions. And sometimes I'm willing to adjust my objective because I don't have a certain KPI or the requirement to meet. So, and you may not be in the same position as I am. So you have to ask yourself these questions. How flexible are your publication objective. If it is very flexible, then you have a higher chance. If it is not, then you have lower chance. It's not to say completely you don't have chance. Now, second thing is, now, whether you have distinct research questions. Now, the worst thing is, okay, you have the same research topic and then you generate multiple papers. Then all your papers would have a lot of overlaps. Okay. And when your paper have a lot of overlaps, you run the risk. Even though, okay, I write 5 papers out of it, and then I submit to 5 different journal, and all because there are 5 different journal from 5 different publisher, they go through 5 different peer review process, and it can be 5 papers all accepted by 5 different journal and got published. And you know what? People will actually read your papers. And when people read your paper, hey, how come so identical one? Or the data set the same, the research topic, the variables is very closely related, and then people will lodge complaint, and you may run the risk of your paper being retracted. So, in order to avoid these questions, these situations, you must have distinct research questions. Things that are so different, so isolated that, yeah, they are related, but they are not exactly the same. Or you use different theoretical framework, different variables, you have minimal overlaps, then it is possible for you to do that. But then again, before you can do that, there is a prerequisite. You need to really understand the domain very, very well. Because if you don't understand them well enough, you would not know how to split them in a very meaningful way. So before you execute or before you can determine number two, you have to do a lot of literature review, a lot of study, and build your knowledge. Okay. And number three, the robust data set support. Now, if you are doing, let's say, for example, you are using a quantitative methods, okay, and you're relying on a set of data. Now, quantitative methods, let's say you are relying on secondary data, okay? Now, secondary data are your data rich enough that you can have different variables that you are able to do it because sometimes beside your independent and dependent variables, you need to have your moderating or mediating variables or sometimes a control variable as well. And it's the same thing is if you're using survey data, okay, you're running a survey. Oh, let me do a survey to gather a lot of data to cover a lot of variables. You can try to do that, but you may end up not being able to collect any questionnaire because why? Your respondent will get fed up halfway through answering your questions. Like for example, for myself, you say, "Oh, it will take me 5 minutes to answer the questions." Yes, if after 5 minutes you still have a lot of questions to ask, I will quit. I will not continue because why? It's an endless tunnel. It is so difficult. It's a waste of time. I do not know when it will stop. So that's why when you use survey data, you think that survey data is easier to collect. No, it's not. Because nowadays people don't want to waste time doing this. So then again, do you have enough data set to support you from doing that? Okay. Now, of course, if you say I do qualitative, then do you know enough informations from your the party that you interview so that you are able to craft out different research questions and you still have enough data to support them. So then again, that is another question that you have to ask. Okay. Now, if you do not have, you cannot meet number three, no point looking at number two. Okay. Because now, a lot of time people, I mean, many of my friends or even when I did my MBA, I did my DBA at the time, my supervisor and some of the professors, lecturers share, oh, you start with thinking of what do you like to what to study, what would you be interested in, what is your passion, where is your passion. Now to me, they are not practical. I always look at the from the because I'm probably more pragmatic. I look at where can I get the data. If I don't have data, I can have the fanciful idea in the world. I can have the wildest idea, the most innovative idea, but I don't have data, forget about it. So I always ask this question, what kind of data I can get? And based on the data I can get, then I can have research. So I always start with data. Okay. And then again, number four, you also ask these questions. Do you have enough resources or not? Now, sometimes you say, oh, I want to write four papers, three papers, two papers. Okay, sure, you can write. But the question is, the more papers you want to generate, the more time and effort you require. If you work as a team, then probably you can, leverage on the teamwork. But if you're working alone, then can you allocate enough time to do that or not? And number four is the least of your concern because if you can go through number three, number two, and even number one, you sure can adjust your number four. Okay? So, but then again, number four is equally important. You cannot ignore that part. These are the practical, what I call prerequisite that I have identified. Okay? Why I can identify this? Because I've done many multiple projects with multiple papers. In fact, I am quite keen on doing this because I don't want to waste time writing just one paper. I prefer to write few papers in one go and put them as a project. I will share with you how I execute them later. So the publication reality, remember this, whether you like it or not, I find that a lot of people try to avoid this because I have worked with certain platforms where they coach students or even academicians to actually publish paper. And a lot of time I find that they live under a myth that publication is about what they like to do. And the reality is don't the editor, the reviewer, don't care what you like. They don't want to know what you like and they don't bother. They only know what they want and what they like. And it is what they want and what they like that determines whether you got your paper published or not. So you got to understand this reality because it is not you who determine whether your paper got published or not. It is they determine your paper got published or not. You are the one who determine whether your paper are generated or not. So they are not the one who determine whether you can write a paper or not, or you can come up with a paper. They can't decide that. They have no ways of influencing that. You are the one who have 100% autonomy on that. But after you finish writing the paper, that is none of your business anymore because subsequent decisions are in the hand of the editors and reviewer. If you don't write something that they like, too bad. They will keep on rejecting you, telling you no, and you can be so gung ho, so passionate about the topic. So what? They don't bother. They don't care. So you have to understand this fundamental truth because if you do not, you are going to face reality the hard way, uh, the very what I call discouraging way, or you face it now and move on with it and maneuver according to this, and you will find that things are much more easier for you. Okay, this is how I come to reality because for those of you who have heard my previous webinar, I started publications without any help. My supervisor don't help me because my supervisor asked me, Richard, why do you want to publish? You're not an academician, you don't have KPI to meet. Your your program doesn't require you to publish so many papers. So why do you bother that? Don't waste your time. Okay? And she's not telling something wrong. From her angle, it's absolutely right. It's just that I started publication because I want to improve my academic writing because I find that I'm very bad in academic writing in the beginning. And if I do not improve my academic writing skill, I may not be able to complete my DBA thesis. So in order for me to finish my DBA thesis, I need to brush up my skill and I don't have much help. Then I write papers and get reviewer to help me to improve. And this is how I started. Okay. So the reality is I have sometimes wrote on certain topics that I feel so gung ho about it that at the end of the day, reality tell me that sorry, people are not interested. So you have to face the truth. Okay. Now, so after sharing you all these things that I've summarized, then the next thing is okay, how do I start? How do I go about it? What are the steps that I need to take in order for me to actually execute this? Okay. Now I have identified 10 steps. 10 steps for you to uh, go about it. And then from there, you'll be able to execute and generate multiple papers. But before this 10 step, remember, you must meet these four requirements first. These four requisite, if you meet them, then only then you come to this 10 step. Okay, if you don't meet those prerequisite, forget about it. Okay, now first of all, if you come to the 10 step, first of all is your ideations. That means when you explore, whether you have unique research question or not, what are the data that you can actually gather? What are the ideas? Excuse me. What are the ideas, okay, that you can actually toy with, play with? So you play with it around your mind, and then you brainstorm, fine tune it. Then subsequently, you find that you have something that is about right, but you do not know whether it's right or wrong yet. Then what do? You do literature review. You need to do literature review because you need to find out the idea that you have. How feasible are they? Have they been studied before? Are they novel or not? What are the theoretical framework that can actually support your idea? What are the variables that can support your ideas? What are the research questions that you can craft out of your idea? You have to go through literature review, and it is only through literature review you can come up with all these things. Okay? So if you know your subject well enough, your literature review will be short. If not, you spend times, weeks, maybe, sometimes days, weeks, maybe months to go through a literature review. Then after you have gone through literature review, you more or less know that, okay, what are the theoretical framework that you can use, what are the variables, what are the research questions, blah, blah, blah. And then you will probably have an idea that, what are the data you need to support this. Then you go into whether you can get those data or not. How easy are you to get those data? How complete are those data? You actually have to get real data and see whether it meets a requirement or not. Don't stop at hypothetically, because hypothetically is not good enough. You at least you get check one or two. Okay. For example, in my case, I use secondary data. Let's say I use secondary data. Then what I do is I get from public company annual report. So I pick a few annual reports and I go through them and check whether I can extract those data or not. Whether those data easily available or not. Is it easier for me to process those data? For example, I would try with a few. Okay. So once I pass this stage, I say, okay, I can get the data. I have the questions, I have the theoretical framework, I know what is the variables, okay? I know those variables are novel enough. Then what I do is I start to design how many papers I can write. Each paper, what are the areas I need to look at, and I start to plan. Okay? I have to plan based on, okay, paper one, what is the research questions, what is the theoretical framework, what are the variables, okay, what are the data involved, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I start to plan, then I know, okay, I have a few. Now, sometimes what I do is I plan, okay, let's say uh, I will make sure that those paper that I prioritized earlier are those that I have more confidence to meet all the necessary. And when it comes to much later, it will be something that is less, what I call confidence, then it's okay. Then what I do is I may drop them eventually, okay? Which I can share with you an example that I've done that before. Then after that, I go into data collection and analysis. Okay, I always start with data first. Okay, because without data, you cannot do any research. Without research, you cannot write any paper. So begin with the end in mind, and you start with the end in mind. Okay, and after that, you go to number six, which is you start writing the paper because you have got the data already, you have done the analysis, and then you can start writing the papers. Okay. Now, of course, those of you who have attended my previous webinar, you know that writing papers is not starting from abstract all the way down to conclusion. It doesn't work like that. There's a better way of writing it. You start with the methodology, then the research, other the results, then you go back to introductions, literature review, then you go to conclusion, then you go back to abstract, then you finish off the paper. Okay. Now, and then number seven, after you have written the paper, which is you are 100% in control, then you have to start planning. How do you, what I call, submit your papers? For those of you who attended my previous webinar on the publication strategy, you can go back there and have a look as to how do you strategize your submission. Okay. Now, I don't believe, I don't believe in, oh, I write this paper for this journal and I do one submission and you got it. I don't believe that. Okay. It's not that I have not experienced that. The chances of achieving that is very, very, uh, what I call little, especially when you're aiming for Scopus and SSCI or SCIE journal. Now, out of those papers that I publish, uh, so far there's only one paper that my first submissions to the first journal itself, it gone through the whole process and got published. Only once. The rest, I have to try multiple different journals. I have wrote papers for a journal before, for a special issue. I thought that, oh, maybe with a special issue, I will be able to get my paper published easier. Too bad. No, I got rejected. Then I have to go for alternative paper, alternate journals. Okay. So never aim, I just want one. Okay. Even though your paper will only be published in one journal, but do not what I call prepare everything just for one journal. You have to prepare for many and you prioritize them and you hit the one that where you can hit. Because why? Again, it is not how good your paper is. It's not how much you're passionate with the topic. It's about how much the editor and the reviewer like your paper. I have a paper that I submitted the first submission to a journal, and that paper uh, got two reviewer gone through it. One reviewer 100% buy into my first revision. The other reviewer 100% reject my paper. So at the end of the day, the editor favored the one that reject my paper, and my paper got rejected. And it took me another mm, 9 months. No, sorry, 8 months before I found another what I call journal that are willing to accept my paper. Mhm. So um, and that paper was accepted. Uh, of course, I make some amendment, but that paper got accepted because the reviewer and the editor just sort of like the topic that I presented. Okay, now when after you submitted your papers, at first you do not really know what the editor and the reviewer like. You do not know. You only know what are the journal you want to submit to. Okay, and after several rounds of rejection, normally what I do is I will look at those rejections with comments. If those comments are constructive, I will look at those constructive comments and I will see whether is it meaningful for me to amend my manuscript to meet those comments. And if it does, I will make revision, and then I will change the manuscript, I'll reevaluate everything, and then I'll do revision, which is step number 8 and number 9. Then I'll go back to resubmitting the paper. Remember just now the paper that I shared with you, the paper that got rejected by one reviewer. I mean, the other reviewer passed absolutely, and then the editor actually rejected the paper. And I actually thought through why this is so. Of course, at that point in time, I was so frustrated, honestly speaking. But then again, after thinking through, I find that maybe I can handle it a different way. I reevaluated and I make some revision to the paper and I started the submission process again. And after going for a few journal, I finally hit another journal that allows what I call are willing to consider my paper. Okay, so uh, that is possible. Okay, so These are the 10 steps that I have used them before, and they have helped me to actually what I call help me in publishing multiple papers. Okay. So now, of course, just now I share with you. Now, as an editor itself, let me share with you something what I would consider. When I look at people submitting papers to me, okay, of course I will look at the novelty, the contributions, blah blah blah. And even as a reviewer, I'll do that. But then again, I also consider what kind of journal I'm looking at. If let's say the journal I'm looking at is just a new journal, which I'm currently heading a new journal, okay, it's not indexed yet, then I am willing to lower my expectations and my requirement and allow what I call those researchers, those people to go through the peer review process. But if let's say I'm now reviewing for SSCI Q1 journal, oh, I would apply the most rigorous standards on the paper that I review. So it all depends. And so if you, it depends on your, remember this, I share with you, how flexible are your publication objective? If your publication objective is very flexible, actually you can consider new journal. Like for example, the journal I'm working on, if you are talking about something economics, you're talking about sustainability, talking about innovations, you submit to my journal, and if it's not too bad, I mean, we will let you go through the peer review. We'll find a way to help you to actually get your paper published because a new journal would want papers, okay? And a new journal normally is easier to get published. Uh, they are less stringent. They will give you more attention. You are able to gain small successes easier. So this is something a benefit. Of course, if you say, "Oh, I'm to do it for my PhD requirement," and you need to at least meet Scopus Q3 or Q4, or you need to meet SSCI Q3 or Q4, then it's a different story. Okay, then you choose the journal that are able to meet the requirement. Okay, and of course, it doesn't mean that, okay, let's say you generate 5 papers. It doesn't mean all 5 papers must go to SSCI or all 5 papers must go to Scopus. You can be, okay, 2 papers go to SSCI, then 3 papers go to the non-index one. That's possible. Okay, because again, go back to how flexible you are. Okay, now I'm going to share with you some practical experiences that I have personally executed. Okay, when Dr. Clare invite me to actually do this topic, I actually think through about my publication process, and I realized that, oh, actually I have been what I call using this mindset to do research, and that is why I say that, okay, I can share a lot of practical experience. I've done about seven projects with multiple papers. Okay, I will share with you how I handle each of this project, and hopefully through my practical experience, you are able to gain something that you can pick up and it will be useful to you. Okay, now this is my first project. Okay, now my first project I attempted 3 papers. Okay, I didn't start with the intention of doing 3 papers. I started with the intention of doing 1 paper. So I did this for the preparation of my TBA thesis because I need to know what has been going on the research topic that I'm working on. Uh, so a good way to make sure I learn everything that I need to learn is to do a systematic literature review because a systematic literature review allows me to go through all the necessary literature that are involved in the topic, in a similar topic. So I will have to read all of them. I won't miss any of them. And because I read all of them, I know what is novel, what is not novel, what have been investigated, what have not. Then I can find how to craft my thesis to make it a meaningful thesis, a meaningful piece of research. So I started with the determinant, the first paper, the determinant of environmental, social, and governance disclosure. Okay. Then, as I search through the data, because it's a systematic literature review, the data is literature. I search through the literature, I find that wow, not many articles has been published on this topic itself. Then I started to fear, wow, like that. Would I be able, if even I've completed the literature review, would I be able to have enough knowledge of the domain that I'm able to write my thesis properly? Then I started to realize that a lot of ES3 literatures talk about CSR as well. If that's the case, then I might as well extend it to cover CSR. And that is where I decided to expand my database from ES3 disclosure to CSR disclosure. And because of CSR disclosure, I'm able to write my third paper, which is the determinant of CSR disclosure. Then I realized that since I have ESG and CSR, might as well I do another paper that compare both. Okay, so that is how I came out with the three papers. I didn't plan earlier because at that point of time nobody shared with me how to go about it. Nobody. I do not know how to do that. It's just all uh, me try and error. Okay, and let me share with you the outcome. The first paper, because it is a novel topic at that point of time, I published the paper in 2023. Okay, it took me about eight 8 to 9 months to get this paper published. Okay, now and it was published in SSCI Q1 and the Scopus Q1 journal. I was so happy. And at that point of time, why I be able to publish this paper is because of the topic, not because of my writing skill. Because of the topic, I hit bullseye. That's why I got published. Now, the other two papers, oh, they experience very different fate. These two papers was rejected at least by I think each one of them at least by more than 10 to 15 journal. So fed up. And then because the process is dragging until I so fed up with these two pieces of paper that I decided that okay, enough is enough. I want it to be published as early as possible. I do not want to go through the hassle of waiting for it. Then I decided that okay, instead of going for SSCI or Scopus, I just go there. I just submit these two papers to my site journal. Okay, for those who are not non-Malaysian, my site index is actually Malaysian government recognized index, which is not that high ranking compared to Scopus, but it is okay in Malaysia. So I decided I go to this my site because I have confidence that my paper, once submitted to my site, I will get through one. And true enough, one submission, I mean after one review, the paper got went through, got accepted, and got published. So the second and third paper were published in my site journal. That is where I realized that it is not what I like. What I like is not important. What I like only may drive me to finish off writing the papers. Whether got paper got published or not is about what the editor, the reviewer like. So these two paper is the first time I learned that lesson, and these three papers are the papers that help me to understand I can do multiple papers in one project if I treat them as one project. Okay, so you can say that uh, some people use one data set and split into three. For me, is as I work, I gather more data and then I churn out more papers. Okay, but at this point of time, because of my inexperience, I didn't think the way that I shared with you earlier because I haven't summarized those key points yet. But this was my first project that I published three papers. From the time I wrote the paper, I started November 2022. Uh, the last paper got published, all in easily took me about close to 2 years. All three papers got published. Okay, so this is the first topic, the first project. Now, then I move on to the second project itself. Now, this time, if you notice, there I wrote five papers. Now, these five papers is like this. When after I finished uh, writing the three papers, that project, then I went into write my DBA thesis. So when I write my DBA thesis, I realized that, oh, actually, the same research design or the research framework itself, I can actually use them to what I call generate similar papers, okay, using the same research framework, but I have different variables. Because why I can do that? Because of the literature review that I've gone through when doing these three papers. Okay, so then I decided, okay, I can do that. I will use the same research framework and I will write a few papers. At that time, I do not know how many papers I can generate. So what happened is when I do my DBA thesis, when I collect the data, I try to collect as many data as possible because I have a plan after my thesis. I'm going to write few papers. So in order for me to uh, think of how many papers I can generate, I have to think about what are the variables, what are the different research questions I can craft out of it, and what are the data I can obtain. So at the end of the day, as I was preparing for my thesis, I already gathered those data and I have some ideas. I didn't execute them, I just have ideas. So when by the time I finish writing my thesis, okay, I have time because I'm actually pretty much ahead of my what I call DBA program. So I use the time that I have while waiting for the beginning of the semester to submit my thesis, blah blah blah. I start writing on this paper. I actually based on the what I call data set I have, I craft up five different research questions. Okay, and then I wrote those five papers. I submitted them. Now, these five papers are the first five empirical studies, empirical research that I've done. And honestly speaking, I've done it very lousily because at that point of time, I know very little. I must admit. So what happened is uh, these five papers got published. Okay. Now, I wrote those papers in uh, August, September 2023. And these five papers, the last paper got published was in end of September 2005, which it took me about 2 year plus, 2 year, 1 month to actually finish off publishing five papers. Okay. So the first paper was published in a non-index journal. Okay. This what I call this journal is run by a body in Ukraine. Okay, I published this paper. I talk about board characteristics in terms of influencing this ESG disclosure. Okay, then my second paper, I was lucky and it got published in the SSCI Q1 journal. And uh, because I submitted to this journal itself, this journal actually the reviewer, the editor, they were not quite happy with my original manuscript, but they liked the idea. So what happened is they give me chance, they asked me for revision, and I revised the paper. Okay. And I took the opportunity of revising the paper to learn about a lot more. Then the third paper that I published was this year in the month of June. Yes, in the month of June and July. Yes, around that time. It got published in SSCI, oh, not, it's a ESCI and a Scopus Q1 journal. Okay. And then the other two papers, because of lack of novelty, I've tried with a lot of what I call SSCI or Scopus journal. I find that because of lack of novelty, then I adjusted and submit to my site journal and they got published. Because with my research skill now, the moment I submit to my site journal, I have more or less, I'm confident that my paper will be accepted. But this is my last resort. I always attempt the SSCI and the what I call Scopus journal first. If I cannot, I find that after writing to them for some time, after submitting a few rounds, got rejected. I roughly know why they don't like it, and I cannot improve it. Then I'll go for my side. Okay, because why? Because I have flexibility. I am not bound by KPI. Okay, so these five papers. Now these five papers, basically they have the same research framework, but they have all of them have the same dependent variables. They all use secondary data, all quantitative methods, but their econometrics analysis or the regressions analysis that I use are different. Okay, and then the variables are different. The independent variables, the moderating variables are different. The control variables are different. Okay, when I say difference is it may not be exactly different, especially the control variables. Some control variables may appear what I call overlaps, only change a few, but the independent variables are basically different. Okay, because for this type of study, the independent variables and the moderating variables are the one that distinguish from other studies. So you need to make sure they are different. Okay, so out of the five projects out of the five papers that generated on this project, two of them got published in Scopus and Web of Science Journal. The other two is in my site. The other one is a non-index. Okay, the non-index one was published the earliest because at that time I wanted to go for a Scopus one. Okay, and then the what happened is the what I call the editor told me that, oh, sorry, they have run out of those non-open access journal spots. If I want to publish in that journal itself, I have to pay the article processing charges to and make it open access. If I do not want to publish open access, then they'll transfer me to another journal. Don't have to go through the peer review because the peer review I've gone through already, but it is a non-index journal. So I say, okay, at that time, I just want the paper published, go ahead. Okay. So this is the second project. I attended five papers. And it took me because I planned this paper uh, since March, since February and March 2003, and I started writing it in August, September 2003. So it took me a few months to initiate the ideas and to execute it. Okay, and it took me 2 years plus to actually finish publishing all five papers. Okay, so publication is not a short journey; it's a long journey. Okay, and it's like running marathon. So okay, now comes the third project. So when I come to the third project itself, I'm already a lot more experienced compared to the first two projects. Okay, and the third project, it was okay after I finished my submitting my what I call my thesis. I wrote a few papers. They are not multiple papers in one project. They are in isolations. Then I gone through my viva and post amendment. Then after that, I find that, oh, since I already master the research framework, why don't I try to generate a few more papers? Okay, because at that time I already know how to write papers that are able to what I call aim for SSCI journal or Scopus journal. So I decided that okay, I want to try something. So what happened is I did go through this process. I use number one ideation. I go through literature review. Okay, then I go through the data requirement I need. From there, I actually come up with, oh, I can generate four papers. Okay. I think I can generate four papers. In fact, I generated four papers. Okay. And I thought that these four papers, they have novelty. But actually, I'm wrong. Okay. I have misjudged what the reviewer and the editor like. So what happened is, of course, this paper itself, that I got published out these four papers, the published one, this paper itself was amazing because first submission, bullseye, it took me less than 3 months. Sorry, it took me not less than 3 months, exactly 3 months from the submission to publication, to actual publication, 3 months. Okay. So because I hit bullseye on the what I call the novelty. The novelty came from the theory, the behavioral theory of the firm. It had never applied in this context before, so I applied and then bullseye, it hit. Then it got published. Okay, and this journal itself, I always got rejected from this journal. I saw like, wow, this journal is something that it's like very far away from me. I would never be able to reach it. But this particular paper itself allows me to prove that I'm wrong. It's not that far away. If I hit the right topic, I can still publish in those journal that I never thought I could publish before. So the first paper got accepted very fast. The other three papers, is a different fate. Okay. And you notice that I mentioned there's one paper now in the revision one stage. Is after submitting to many rounds of journals, I got rejected. Okay. For information, I wrote this paper, these few papers in the month of July, July 2004. I wrote these four papers, July and August 2004. I wrote these four papers, and uh, now it's already October 2005. After 1 year plus, my second paper are able to found another SSCI Q1 journal that are willing to consider it, and then you have gone through the revision one stage. Earlier, I attended a lot of SSCI journal. They rejected me. Okay, but I continue because I don't have KPI. So anyway, just a hobby. So I submitted, and finally I hit one. Now the other two, uh, not so lucky. Okay, and then now remember one thing. When I planned for this four papers, at that point of time, at that point of time, there could be novelty in the topic that I'm looking at. But as time pass, I will lose this novelty because there are new papers coming out. And when a new paper is coming out, and if somebody had published a similar research topic, that's it, gone, my novelty. So if you want to go for SSCI Q1 or Q2, or even Scopus Q1, Q2, you have to race for novelty. They race for time. Okay? So these four papers. Now, these four papers is much easier because I actually use the same concept of the project two, but I extended uh, the research in the sense that now they are not just focused on the same dependent variables. There are the dependent variables and the independent variables change, but the research framework is similar, and in fact is more advanced because of the knowledge that I gained when I did the project two. Okay, and it is when I completed this four papers in project three itself, I know that I've sort of like mastered the necessary skill set in terms of doing quantitative studies with secondary data. Okay, so uh, this is how I did my project three. So you can see my project one, two, three, they are sort of like connected. My project one lay the foundation for my project two and three. My project two lay the foundation for my project three. Okay, so and they are more or less revolving around the same idea on ESG or sustainability. Okay, now then I move on to project four. Project four is very different because project four are uh, different from what I've done previously. Okay, because the earlier one that I shared with you are all secondary data or systematic literature review. Project 4, I wrote them in 2004, probably in the month of April or May. That means I wrote Project 4 before Project 3. Okay. I, I wrote I wrote these two papers because at that time I was acting as a consultant for a client of mine, and I work very closely with my client. I able to get a lot of data regarding the company and how the company evolved, blah blah blah. Then I decided that why don't I make use of those data and write two papers, okay? And of course, it's not easy. Same company. How do I what I call write two different papers that talks about different aspect of the same company? Okay. And then after I think through it again, I have to go through literature review. Uh, I look at the theoretical framework that I'm using on. Then I finally found that I can write two papers. I cannot write three papers because I don't have enough content to write three papers. Otherwise, there will be too much of overlaps. So the first paper, uh, it is going to be published because it has been accepted, not published yet. That's why I can show you the name of the journal, but not really the first page of the article because it is not out yet. Sometimes, except from the date of acceptance all the way to actual publication, it takes months, sometimes. So the first paper that I've generated is using uh, the resource-based view and dynamic capability to actually talk about how uh, a Chinese SME developed its competitive advantage. Okay, it is using qualitative methods. It's a case study. So I built out the case. Okay, I gone through easily three rounds of review. Why? Because I am exploring the qualitative case study methods. I'm not good at it. These are the although these two are not the first two papers that I wrote, these are the third and the fourth papers I use case study. But these two papers are the first two that I'm going through that I'm submitting to Scopus or Web of Science Index journal. Okay. The other two I submitted to my site and then the non-index journal, which is easier. But this one I want to try something different. So I decided to go for this Brazilian business review. Okay. And it got accepted. It's a Q3 journal. And then the second paper, in fact, I'm actually in the process of revising it the second round. It is a ESCI journal. It's a Scopus Q2. I talk about a, two different theoretical framework applying on the same company, talking about a different aspect of the company. So there are certain overlap, but the overlap are minimal. They are very unique, different. They look at the different perspective of the company. So now, how I can do that is because for in this case, how do I know I have enough data? Because I know the company well enough. I talk to the bosses, the founder, the management team. I work closely with them. I understand where they are and what kind of situation they are. Okay, I understand the theoretical framework. I know that for case study itself, uh, it is the theoretical framework that is very important because I mean, academicians or the reviewer, the editor don't like papers that don't have solid theoretical grounding. So I need to make sure that they are grounded theoretically, uh, and then I have new angle to talk about it. So this is the fourth project I'm working on, and one of it has been accepted. The other one is in the process. Hopefully, maybe the next round when I share with you in my next topic, this paper is published. Then I have the fifth project. The fifth project I collaborated with a core author of mine, a professor in what I call Abu Dhabi University. So uh, we decided that we want to do systematic literature review because both of us are well versed with this methods. And then uh, the story come about like this. We wanted to write something. Okay, we want to write a systematic literature review. Both of us are very experienced researcher. We have wrote many papers. In fact, she is more experienced than me. She had wrote even more papers and published more papers. She had started her research journey much, much earlier. So when you work with people that are on par with you or better than you, discussion is very easy. Okay. And then she came up with the idea. At that point of time, my knowledge on ESG is still limited to ES my project 3 and 2, which is the ESG disclosure, ESG performance, ESG index, ESG rating, blah blah blah, but not yet gone out of that context yet. So what happened is uh she came up with the idea, hey, why don't we write something on ESG controversy? Right? Which is something new. I've never touched on this before. So what I did is we actually got into do literature review to search whether is this topic new or not, and whether we can generate papers out of it or not. And before we started, we realized that this topic has been covered. A paper was published in October 2004 covering this topic. By the way, we started the discussion in early December 2004. So that means by the time we look at it, the paper will be published about 1 month plus. And we were shocked that paper was, to me, it was not was badly done, but yet it got published. Okay, so and the journal is a pretty good journal. The journal is a SSCI Q1 journal. Okay, uh, I suspected maybe the the author know the editor. So then, but we like this topic, and this topic we know that a lot of part has not been covered, and we are already halfway doing it. Then we decided that, hey, since we are halfway doing it, why don't we do a narrow topic under ESG controversy? And that is where we come out with the topic or the paper that we published, ESG controversy and corporate financial performance. So sometimes when you do SRR papers, you want to do a topic and that you realize the topic has been covered, then you do a topic, the intersection of two topics. That means, for example, you want to do a topic X, then realize topic X have been covered, then you do X times Y, the intersection of X times Y, that topic can be done. Okay. Of course, you can do even X times Y times Z, then an even narrow topic. But then again, don't go too narrow because when you go too narrow, uh, the reviewer, the editor will find that your paper have limited contribution. Okay. And this paper got published. We finished writing the paper in December 2004. And this paper was published in May. The first paper was published in May 2005. Okay. And this was after several rounds of rejection by different journal. Then we end up with this ESCI Scopus Q1 journal. It's not a bad journal, actually. But of course, if we can go for SSCI, we definitely want to go for SSCI. Okay. Then what happened is uh, we found X and Y intersections. We generate one paper. Then we find another one, X and Z, one intersection, the intersection of X and Z, we generate another paper. Then we go X and A, we generate another paper. X and B, generate another papers. Okay, so that's why the same project itself, we able to generate 4 papers. But of course, the paper 3 and 4, they are too narrow. Okay, what happened is I attempted something new. The intersection is ESG controversy with a theory. The intersection of this theory. Now, this type of SLR is not common. There are people who do SLR based on theory. That means, okay, let's say for example, talk about ESG controversy. I only examine all the theories that has been covered in ESG controversy. I do a systematic literature review. It's not based on theme, it's based on theory. I can do that. But we use a different approach. We take the theory out and then use it in the sections. Now, normally that kind of papers is not common. Is because you only can locate the theory that is being used in a paper when you actually read the actual paper. You may not be able to capture it through the title, the abstract, or the keyword. So a lot of scholars don't like to do that because they want to have an easier life. They don't want to go through reading all the articles to pick up the theory. So normally they don't like to do that. Okay. And why we can do that is because we treat it as a project. When we treat it as a project, we're already reading all the literature. So it's easier for us to pick up the relevant theory that is applied in each article and then identify them as the what I call the articles that a particular SLR will analyze. So our paper 3 and paper 4 are the intersection with different theories. Okay. But unfortunately, these two papers are still going through rounds of reviews because reviewer and what I call editors find that this topic is very narrow. Namely editors. Reviewer not so because this paper, these two papers have not reached. No, sorry, one of these paper have reached a review stage. Okay, it has been in review stage since January until now. The other paper is keep on rejecting, and we are trying different journal. Okay, so you see, sometimes we can generate multiple papers based on certain approach. If you have the data could be secondary data, could be article, could be literature, possible. Okay, but then again, as I share with you, you run the risk. If you do like this, you run the risk. I share with you what I've experienced. I don't hide with you. It's not something that is what I call fantastic. It is something that I face. I share with you so that you know that if you want to go down this path, you can, but you have to face the challenges or the consequences. Okay. So hopefully, if let's say average one project takes about 2 years to publish, so we finish this project in early January 2005, probably by end of 2006, we should be able to get all these paper published. Huh? So or maybe earlier, don't know. Now then come the project six. Now project six is something that is a bit unique because this project states have a pre and a post stage. Okay. Now, a pre stage is when I wrote this, when I wrote this ESG controversy, that is where I step out of ESG performance into other aspect of ESG. Okay. Then I realized that, oh, actually, it's a very big field, it's a big topic itself. And I see a lot of literature review lying here and there, blah, blah, so on and so forth. I find that wow, this is very annoying. Uh, so if I want to if I want to continue to write meaningful and unique research topic on ESG related uh, topics, and I write the systematic literature review, then I probably need to know what has been written before. If not, how can I do that? So while I work on this ESG controversy project, I started my pre-project stage, which is I wrote a umbrella review. And what is umbrella review? Umbrella review is a systematic literature review on systematic literature review. Okay, it's not a systematic literature review on empirical study. No, it's a systematic literature review on systematic literature review. So I wrote this paper and to to actually screen through what are the ESG related SL paper that has been published. Okay, and this is the paper that I share with you. But one journal earlier, One reviewer liked it absolutely, the other reviewer hated it absolutely. At the end, it got rejected. So, and finally, after many months, it's still, I mean, got accepted by a SSCI Q1 journal. So that means this topic itself is not uh, less valuable. It's just that literature review, as I shared with you earlier, if you have done, I mean, if you have listened to my earlier system sharing, literature review papers, editors and reviewer don't like them as much as empirical study because they find that this paper have lesser theoretical contributions. And some more, my paper is a systematic literature review on systematic literature review. They find even lesser. But actually, it is very meaningful because if you want to write any SLR papers on ESG, you read my paper, you will know where are the pocket of opportunity. Okay? But of course, uh, the result is not up to date because I've analyzed up to December 2004. So those paper published after, in 2005 is not captured in this what I call SR paper. Okay, so I did this pre-project six. Once I did this pre-project six, I realized that wow, there are certain topics that has not been written. The SL paper have not been written yet. Okay, and that is where I identify new topics that I can write, and that is how I started Project Six. I identify about all in about 10 topics. Okay. Then I prioritize. Okay, those that are likely to have more papers, I rank it number one. That means this project 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then when it comes to 6.7, I find it not enough literature, forget about it. 6.8, 6.9, 6.10, forget about it. Because they cannot, you don't have enough literature support, you cannot write the paper. So I wrote six different SLR paper on six different unique topic on ESG. And out of these six papers, one paper got published, okay, in the SSCI Q1 journal. Uh, and it touches on the intersection of ESG and machine learning. Okay. And I am not an expert in machine learning. I learned machine learning when I wrote this paper. And after I wrote this paper, surprisingly, a lot of what I call a journal that talks about machine learning AI asked me to review papers. Uh, a lot of conferences on AI invited me to submit abstract, invited me to be the speakers, so on and so forth. Okay. So, but I rejected most of them because first of all, I don't have time. Second thing is, I think I'm not ready yet. Okay. So this is how I do it. And of course, the other five papers, it is still in the review process. One of them have gone through reached the revision one stage. Okay. The other four is still ongoing. Okay. So, and of course, just sidetrack, there is a so-called seven paper under this project. But this seven paper, I don't include them here. It was because the seven paper, I realized that the existence of this topic, and then I didn't plan to do it. I only plan to do it when I saw another journal that is having a special issue on that topic itself. Then I said, okay, if that's the case, might as well I write one paper on this topic because I know that there is no such paper published before, and I submitted to that journal, and it got rejected. Okay, and then after that, I have to submit to a few more journal. It got rejected, 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 and now it is in the hand of a journal under peer review. So again, you see, I did these six papers in the month of January and February. That is, immediately I finish off these four papers, and this paper, I wrote these six papers. Okay, and there is another story when I when I wrote this paper and I submitted them to journal, I experienced something that is so frustrating. A lot of reviewer or even editor, they say that, oh, your topic has been investigated a lot. It is not new. And then they quote the relevant, what I call the literature. And you know what? They are not ESG. They are CSR. So I realized that a lot of scholars, a lot of reviewer and editors, they thought ESG and CSR is the same. And it was so frustrating to me. So it was so frustrating to me. First time I find it, the motivation of me writing a paper is because of frustration. I decided to write another paper to explain that CSR and ESG are not the same. But people confuse them. Why people confuse them? Why the confusion happened? What is the consequences and implication of this confusion? And what is the recommendation to resolve this confusion? I wrote this paper. Okay. Now, when I wrote this paper, it was because of anger, honestly speaking. And I know that this type of conceptual review paper, why conceptual review is talking about concept. It is a review paper because it's not empirical study. It is not exactly like systematic literature review. So this type of paper, even more editor and reviewer don't like it because of little theoretical contributions. But in actual fact, it has a lot of theoretical contribution. If you appreciate the complexions of these two concepts, you know that it has been creating a lot of problems. Then you realize that this paper have a lot of values. So I tried with many SSCI paper, SSCI journal. I tried with many what I call Scopus, and finally there was this journal, the Journal of Environmental Management, SCIE Q1 paper, Q1 journal, decided to give this paper a chance. And and when I read the reviewer comment at the time, I almost fell down from my apartment because the comment that I received, I find it speechless because they thought I'm writing a systematic literature review. And they gave me comment of why my paper is not meeting the requirement of a systematic literature review. And why I don't have bibliometric analysis, why I don't have this, that. Oh, I almost fainted. I got two reviewers who don't understand conceptual review papers, but they are reviewing my papers. So I have to, uh, what I call, rebut their comment, debate with them in a very intellectual, professional way. And I was lucky. They listened to me, they buy my story, and my paper got published. And it was fast. This is the fastest paper I have from submission to publication, less than, I think, 2 months plus. It's even faster than the earlier track record of 3 months. So I was so happy because I never thought that this paper can make it to Q1 journal, but it made it. Okay. And it is a pros project because I get the anger of this confusion when I submitted my 6 papers. I got rejected because of they don't understand. So I decided I want to write something that I can tell them. And with this paper itself, in future, if somebody challenge me again, I will quote my paper and say that, oh, look over here, this paper say they are different. You should not treat them the same. Why they are different? Please read. Okay. So uh, that is how I crafted the six project. Okay. So these are the practical experience I've gone through uh, doing it. And of course, after that, recently this year, several months ago, in the month of July, August, I wrote, do my 7th project. I wrote 3 papers. I attempted uh, doing a regional review, focus on certain region. Okay. And I wrote 3 papers out of it. I know that some of this paper, if it is too narrow, focus on specific countries, People will say that, oh, it's not good enough, blah, blah, blah. I know it. But anyway, since I have the data, then I might as well go about it. For example, let's say you do a paper on a regional paper on Asia. So when you do a regional paper on Asia, data that you have will probably cover Southeast Asia or covering Asian. Or if you say you do a paper on, let's say, MENA region, uh, Middle East and North Africa, then you can have one paper country, a bigger uh, pool, then you can take the subset of it and generate a paper. That is possible. But then again, you have to know that once you go into that narrow space, people will find that your contributions, your uh, the the ability to generalize your finding is lesser. Good journal doesn't like it. But anyway, if you just want to publish a paper, then you're okay with it. So to me, as because I'm flexible, I'm okay with it. So these three papers, so far is still under review and it got a lot of rejection, which I've already anticipated it. So it's okay. So these are the seven projects that I've done. And if you calculate how many papers I've generated, so first project is three, five, 8 papers, then four, 12 papers, then two papers, 14 papers, then another four papers, 18 papers, then pre one, if you counted this one, 18 papers, 19 papers, six paper, 25 papers, 26 papers, then three more, 29 papers. So I've done 29 papers out of, I've written about 47, 48 papers. So more than half of them I've done through uh, finding them in more than one paper and group them into project. Okay. So to end my sharing for today is you start out with idea, generate ideas. Maybe your ideas is wow, may not be workable. It's okay. Generate them, explore them. Then come to the stage, like I say, explore, examine the feasibility and the requirement. Then after you have explored them, then you decide whether you want to go about it with it, how you can go about it with it, what are the resources you have, and number four, execute them, start planning, gather the data, do the analysis, write a paper, and start submitting. And this whole process itself is very time consuming, it's very long, you have to be patient, but at the end of the day, it is rewarding. So I hope that my sharing for the past 90 minutes is meaningful enough. Those are my practical experience, and I'll pass it back to Dr. Claire.